Hey everyone, in today's video, we're going to continue our work on this Kenwood KR-5010. In the last video, you saw we installed some open source STK50 power pack replacements. They seem to be working pretty well, but there's one big mistake that I made that we're going to need to correct with those. Also, we're going to see that this thing kind of sounds like crap. We're going to see why that is, hopefully. I've got some ideas, but we'll find out in a minute here. And the other thing is, this is actually turned on right now, but you'd never know it. So we're going to have to replace the lamps with replacements from dgwojo.com. And last but not least, the tuner works like absolute garbage on this, so we're probably going to need to align it. That might be in a separate video, but if it's in this video, awesome. So for right now, let's take a listen. Let's see what I'm talking about when I say this thing kind of sounds like crap. So let's just go right ahead and play everyone's favorite song. Well, it was doing the thing I wanted to show you, but now it's not. There we go. Take a listen to that. Well, hopefully it's just a dirty speaker switch. You hear that? Looks like it's really bad when I turn that switch. Okay, so maybe that's what's going on there. What really needs to happen right now is this all needs to come off. We need to clean the controls, and while it's all apart, we'll just replace these lamps. So let's go right ahead and get that done. Well, that was really easy. It's probably one of the most painless faceplate removals I've had in a while. Now I want to show you the first thing I want to address. This is the volume knob, and as you may have noticed, it's a little loose. You can see that nut moving around there. That's because it is loose. So this needs to be tightened. And it looks like I need a deep socket for that, unless this shaft will fit through. Oh, bend this out of the way so we can get a socket on the dang thing. There we go. Yeah, much better. Now it's actually tight. Okay, lamps. Let's see how you do the lamps on this thing. Well, this is much better than the MCS. Are these sockets? No, they're not sockets, but they are little boots that we can just kind of run our new light through and then solder leads onto it. Looks like these are tied in with wire nuts. Very classy. You know, it's not too often you see the string done on the outside of the chassis. I actually really like that, because if you were to service this, it'd be really easy. Because, you know, it's just right there, whereas like just about anything else, you're fiddling around inside of here and it's hard. I dig it. It's about the first thing I dig on this receiver. So I've got the old lamps snipped out right there, and then the new ones are next to them, and then the boots that hold the lamps are right up there. And I think what I'm going to do is something kind of interesting. You can see right here, this is where they used wire nuts to tie in the lamps. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to solder one lamp directly to the wires, because this one's still long enough. I think I can still get a lamp right on there. And then these two, I'm going to solder wires to the wires, because, you know, this one, I cut it too long. Probably could have gotten away with that method with all three if I didn't cut that one too long. So let's start with what I think will be the easiest one, which is right here. I'll just strip these guys right here a little bit. I will take this boot and I'll slide it right over, and then I'll take a new lamp. I will bend these guys down like so, so it's like this, and then I'll kind of wrap each part of the wire around, then come in with a small bead of solder. Now, the biggest challenge here is getting enough heat on the lead. We shove it in here, and that's one lamp replaced. Now let's get the leads attached to the other two. Yeah, that is always a struggle. I do not particularly enjoy soldering these on. Okay, now we just gotta splice them in with some heat shrink tubing to the existing wiring, and we should be okay. See, the thing about lamp replacement is that though it is simple, it can be very tedious and time consuming. So models like this, where you gotta, I don't know why this Scotch tape is here, where you gotta do some actual soldering, it can take a little bit. Okay, let's throw this thing on the dim bulb and see if we have lights. Wow, would you look at that? We have lights and we have relay click. Doesn't get much better than that, folks. Now it's time to clean the controls with deoxit. So the controls on this receiver are pretty simple if you recall the front of it. We just have a few switches right here, and then the heatsink is blocking it. But down inside of here, there's some potentiometers and more switches. Yeah, just like one button. However, the main thing we want to get is this guy right here. This is your power switch and speaker switch. So those switches are always metal on metal type switch. So that means we can use deoxit D5 to get into there. And then for the potentiometers, we're going to want to use F5. Here is my D5. I'm just going to get right in there. Not exactly easy to see, but I'm just going to go for it. Okay, hopefully that does something. Now here's another fun thing. You'll see this in the later 70s stuff, but sometimes the switches are not just located up here. They might be all the way back here, and the switch might have a long piece of something like this to make sure the switch can actually get moved back there. You can see a lot more fun little mechanical packaging tricks with this later stuff. So let's just go right down the line. Let's start with this thing. What is this one? I think this is the input selector. I'll do F5 on it. I don't really know how to clean these. I always just kind of shove it in there, give it a squirt, and hope it just finds its way around the things it needs to find its way around. And the other pots are kind of tough to get to. They're all in here, and I'm not even gonna try to show that because it's just not worth it for any of us. So now that we actually have a receiver with clean controls, now we can take a look at diagnosing it a little bit further to see if any of our issues cleared up or if they're still there. So let's take a look at that real quick here. We've got everyone's favorite song playing. Turn this on. Why do we only have sound out of one channel? Well, you'll notice that we don't have any sound out of our left channel, and after a few minutes of fiddling, I figured out that it is our speaker switch, and it's really not wanting to play out of that left channel right now unless I go like that. So I don't know if that means it's dirty or if that means it's failing. I think I need to pull that switch. Either that or do a better job cleaning it. I guess I can also check the solder joints on the bottom of it. Maybe it's just got a bad connection to the circuit board. That would be nice and easy. Okay, so the solder joints for that switch are right here. And it actually appears there's some bad solder joints here. I think I'm going to turn the unit off, and I'm going to reflow all of those and see what we get. And let me just show you what I'm talking about here. You call this a cold solder joint, and it's when, see those little rings around the pins, particularly that one right there. You don't want that, so I'll just reflow all of those, and let's try to do it so you can see around the tripod. Yeah, all we're doing is just going in and adding more to all of them. Okay, let's see if that did anything. Yep. Sure enough. Wow, yeah, I'm glad that worked. And I guess while we're down here, I want to talk about the important thing that I missed on here. We'll turn this off to eliminate glare so you can see better. These guys right here and here are supposed to be mounted to the heatsink. And that's why you see that hole underneath the circuit board, so you can put a screw through there and have it thermally coupled to the heatsink. I totally missed this, and I should have known. I looked right at the pictures. I saw it online and should have known better, but I make mistakes all the time, in case you haven't noticed. So what we need to do is we need to pretty much take all of this apart again, desolder these two guys, and then make them go through the other end of the circuit board so they can actually make contact with the heatsink. And the reason we're doing this is because this circuit uses thermal tracking by means of this transistor to maintain bias and other things. So that's why you want this on the other side. Okay, forgive me for not showing you all that, but it was more painful than I wanted it to be. The transistor's in the right place now. What you see there is just a little piece of circuit board material that is the right thickness. I didn't have to drill a hole. Now it's just kind of a compression fit against the heatsink. So now we have thermal tracking. And we have a visitor. What is it, big guy? What do you want to tell the viewers? Hodor, what do you want to tell the viewers? Do you want to get scratches? Do you want to get good scratches? Yes, you do. Yes, you do. You love them. See, I'm glad he's here, because most of the time you don't get to see him. He's a little camera shy, but he hasn't been fed yet today, so that's why he's around, telling us how he feels. Who's got the purrs? I'll tell you what, folks, anytime you work on a power amplifier section of anything, you always want to make sure you start up on the dim bulb for the first time. Because I actually did that. We're good now, but I did get a bright bulb. There was a short. I don't want to explain it too much. It was kind of troublesome getting the transistors out of those modules and getting them resoldered in. Basically, one of my connections wasn't made right, and it was causing things to draw a lot of current. I would have popped a fuse or gotten something too hot if I didn't have it on the dim bulb. So now that it's on the dim bulb, we know that it is working, and we can turn it off, take it off the dim bulb, go back to the wall, let's attach some speakers, and let's get a feel for how this thing is working now that we have clean switches, an actually attached switch, I guess, and properly mounted module thingies. Our radio is still not good, I know that. It is sounding a lot better now, I gotta say. I know I said it sounds like garbage earlier, but now it sounds normal. Sounds like it should. One small thing I think I'm going to do is a partial recap on here. I see some orange capacitors in here that people tend to say are not that great, and what I'd like to do is replace them with some new ones. And looking at the schematic, it looks like those capacitors are directly in the signal path of this receiver. So there's two others like that, C21 and 22 and C9 and 10. So I'm going to replace those with, I've got these bipolar Nichicons in stock. I think I'll do all four with those. And I'm curious to see if I get any improvement in sound after I do that, so I'll let you know what happens. let's see what happens. Does it sound any different? I mean, if it does, it's all just in my head. I don't know. I do want to say the highs are a little clearer, but it really could just all be in my head. I don't know. It's never a bad thing to replace caps. Never a bad thing. Okay, so the schematic gives you voltages at most all of the pins on all 3 integrated circuit chips on the tuner, which is great. Most of the voltages are all there, except for one. On IC3, there's supposed to be 2.4 volts on both pins, 10 and 11? You can see, here's pin 11, 2.4 volts, and then pin 10 has 0.05 volts. I think that's kind of weird, unless that's what's supposed to be happening when it's in stereo. Maybe that is all it is, but that seems like a low-hanging fruit for me, basically, because it's just one capacitor between those two. So what I'd like to do is pull that capacitor, test it, and if it's bad, we can replace it with a new one. Yeah, I think we found a problem. Let's zoom in on that real quick. Look at that. A nice little crack going down the very bulged case. Let's test that and see how it tests. So here's how that one tested. It's supposed to be 0.47. So now let's try this this film guy here that we can replace it with. And yeah, that's a little more along the lines of what we want to see. So I'll throw this in and see if we get anything different. Let's see if we get those voltages we're supposed to get now. So it was pin 10 we didn't have voltage, so let's see now. 0.05 and 2. Okay, so it works exactly the same, but that cap was definitely bad. Yeah, truly makes me wonder if I should just recap this whole thing first. I don't wanna. It's too much work. Alright, it's time to stop messing around. So we've got the SG-165 out. This is a FM signal generator, or at least part of it is. And you can see as I turn this knob, it we're going away from the signal a little bit. So here's what it does. You can set it to whatever FM frequency, right? So we're going to set it to 96 right now. So that's set to 96 megahertz, and as you can see, we're set to like 98 something. So let's go over to 96, and you can see we can actually tune to the sine wave. Right there is our sine wave, and I'll do one thing real quick. You can control the amplitude or microvolt output of this signal. So if I set it to X1, there is nothing. X10 and X100 still nothing, and I'm at the bottom of the rotation here. Even at the top of X100 you can still kind of see something, but not really. But it's not until you get to X1000 that you can even make out the wave. And even then, it's still not very good. It's not that clear. So it should be able to pick this up clearly, and it should be at 96 also, but it's not. Now, since the SG-165 is a very analog thing, we're not exactly sure if we're actually putting out that 96 megahertz. So one thing I'm going to do real quick is bring in this frequency counter. This is this piece of equipment's debut on the channel. Let's try the A input. And yeah, that was really quick actually. It's counting the frequency we're putting out. So you can see we're at 95.9 or 8. And if we were to turn this knob, we get up to about 96. So one thing I'll do as I go through the alignment process is I will check what I'm actually putting out with this to make sure that I'm getting the proper number in there so everything is exactly right, because you know it's tough to read this, you know. We're gonna do our first thing. So the service manual wants us to set this to 108 megahertz. Okay, that'll be just fine right there. So now let's put that through to the radio. And now we're going to set this thing to 108 megahertz. You can see we pick up the signal right there. So now we want to adjust a thing called TC3. We're adjusting some of the pots in here basically. You can look at the service manual if you want to follow along. Okay, let's turn it. Ooh. Oh, look, we actually did something. You want to adjust that until it's the maximum. It is a little touchy. Okay, that's good. And then it wants us to adjust TCA and TCR. Oh yeah. I can really clean up that signal adjusting that. I hope my arm wasn't in the way too much for that, but you saw the signal was kind of shaking earlier. I adjusted TCR and now it's much nicer. I mean, apparently that's all I needed to do. There's not really anything else in the alignment procedure. So I'm curious. I want to bring my frequency down to the lower end. Let's go to 88. There's 88 on the generator. So let's go back to putting it into the receiver. Let's go all the way down to 88. Okay, so when I pin it to 88, I'm not exactly on, but I can tune pretty well that way. It's only off by 1 dash, which is honestly fine with me. I'm going to hook up some actual speakers to the B speakers and we'll take a listen through there. Okay, so I've gotten it to actually tune to stations and not sound too bad. Like, it never used to do that. This is an enormous improvement. Okay, I figured out why we're not getting FM stereo. It's because on the faceplate, it's not there, but right here you see I had it set to FM mono. So once we set it to stereo, we get FM stereo. So there, it tunes to stereo, and I can hear it tune to stereo, and that's some good stuff right there. What do you think, Hodor? So now what I'm doing real quick is I'm setting the stereo separation, and that is controlled with a pot called VR2 on the board here. Now, what you can do with this thing is you can actually toggle your right and left signals here with these switches. And then this middle switch gives you the stereo pilots. So you can see if I turn this off, the stereo light goes off. If I turn it on, stereo light turns on. So let's leave that on, and now we can have stereo. So let's set these to the same volts per division real quick here. I have both channels laid over one another, the right and left channels. So let's turn off the left channel real quick. And it starts going all crazy because it's not triggering to the left channel, it's triggering to the right. So let's turn off the right channel instead. There, now we see it's all fine and dandy. So the flat line, that's the right channel. So let's increase our volts per division on that signal. So you can see on our oscilloscope, we get a little bit higher resolution into that. So it's real nasty looking. Now I'm going to turn VR2. And as I turn that, you can see the separation change. I can invert it, or I can have it go there. If I go all the way, everything goes nuts. So basically we want this line to be completely flat. And I'm increasing the volts per division because, see, when it's equal to what we have the other one, it's a little harder to see those bends there. So if I zoom in per se, see how much easier it is to see that? So I'm going to go there. And I'm going to call that separated. So I'll turn that back on. Got our stereo separation. There you go. how about I put this thing back together, wash the faceplate and the controls and all that stuff, and I'll show you how it looks when it's done. There she be, folks. This thing is good to go. Back to what it should be. Again, the one thing I really don't like about this is there is no aux switch on the selector. Like, all you can do is play with the tape monitors, which is really obnoxious in my opinion, especially for something from the late 70s. The fact that there's no aux on the selector is just, I don't have the words. Words I'd rather not use on YouTube, right? I mean, let's take a look. It cleaned up really, really nice. You may recall this was kind of dirty. It wasn't the cleanest, but all of the dirt came off, no issue. And it's a really nice looking receiver. Really simple, entry level, you know, but still plenty of power. As you can see, we're tuned to FM stereo, and we actually get stations now, which this never used to happen. So there it is, yet another receiver brought back to life. You know, a lot of people might have looked at this one and thought nothing of it. It might have ended up in the scrap bin, kind of like that MCS, but you know, there's always a way to fix this older stuff. I think that a lot of the really bad sound that we were hearing before was really due to this thing just having such awful solder joints on it. Now that those are reflowed and they're good to go, everything's coming through better. Replacing the caps and the signal path and the preamplifier might have made things better. I don't have any true comparisons except my memory, which, you know, it's probably a little biased. And then the FM tuner, it worked horribly before, and then the instructions in the service manual gave me a little procedure to check the alignment, and once I did that, it was working a lot better. Still not the greatest tuner in the world. A lot of tuners on these receivers, I will be able to tune into stations without an antenna hooked up. This one, you need a good antenna. But it works. So that is it. Thank you so much for watching. I'm glad I had the opportunity to bring this back and get the FM alignment finally in a video. I bought that thing over a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, and I've been promising an FM alignment for a while. So here, first FM alignment ever for me and on this channel. So yeah, hope you enjoyed all of that. Thank you again so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. And maybe Hodor will too. He's been so good tonight. Such a great helper.